Hello and welcome. This is James Blanchard, Cisneros at your service. Today I will be reading the December 2nd Facebook post and making a few comments on it, and I trust that it will assist both of us on our journeys. If it does help you, please be so kind. If you're watching on Facebook, put your cursor over the screen, give it a thumbs up here. On YouTube, thumbs up down here. Thank you for that. It helps with the listening process and it can help somebody find this video who can use the information. Here we go. Trust reduces guilt and increases peace. When we are being judgmental towards others, because we are all one, what we're really doing is not being respectful of our own self. The ego tries to project blame, our inner confusion, this lack of self-respect as coming from an outside source, so that we don't question it, our ego, as the source of our conflict. Guilt results from this unconscious lack of self-respect. Yet guilt is not our true home, peace is. And so today let us make a conscious effort not to judge another's journeys, even when the ego's programming insists that we should. Today we practice instead aligning ourselves with a state of peace by increasing the level of trust in God's plan. God's plan and our highest will's plan for our life are one. Choosing this understanding over the ego's need for judgment will diminish our level of guilt and raise our level of peace. Today, remember, whatever road you're taking is sacred and co-created with God, as is the road that your sister is choosing to take to return home. Trust this truth instead of the ego's lies, and you will find peace. How do we define guilt? Guilt is an emotion we feel because of a past action we took that does not align with our highest self. And so that is truly all guilt is an illusion we hold about ourselves. And how do we increase peace? By increasing our level of trust and thus reducing guilt. When we view guilt through the ego's perception, the ego wants us to believe that we are bad because of this guilt. And if we are bad, then obviously we're not a part of God. And if we're not a part of God, then we will look for somewhere for safety. So then we look to the ego's thought system for safety. So we align with it. When we align with it, then it gets to survive through us. Seen through God's eyes, guilt is simply a useful tool in aligning with your highest self. And so anytime that guilt comes along, it is simply showing you where you have separated yourself from your true self, from your highest self. And so in essence, what else other than gratitude can we offer guilt? Because guilt is simply helping us realign with who we truly are. And so let us take a look at the game of the past, the present, and the future. Let's imagine our past self, where this guilt was created for X or Y reason. Many times we experience things such as confusion and chaos in our past, or things that didn't quite go according to our belief that it should have gone, or things we were regretful of, resentful of, etc. But now in the present, when we look to our past, we see how much wisdom, life experience, and knowledge this experience provided. So this experience, no matter how chaotic, guilt-ridden it was, helped us become who we are today. So when we acknowledge that this experience helped us who we have become today, would gratitude not be a proper response to our past self for that? The past self that the ego would hold as guilty? And so now let us look if our present self can see our past self in this way, and our present self be thankful to our past self for what it went through to become us, then wouldn't our future self be also grateful to our present self? Even though our present self, when we're looking at it through the ego's thought system, is showing us things we should be guilty about, confused about, chaotic about, angry about, resentful about. But wouldn't our future self be thankful to our past self, because all this life experience is simply going to help us become a wiser, more compassionate, peaceful, joyful, self-aware being? And so our future self understands that all this from the present to when we meet the future self, is a gift that we were offering ourselves to help ourselves grow and develop. And so our future self does not look at our present self with guilt. It looks at our present self with gratitude, with kindness, with compassion, with understanding. And so now imagine this future self being God, the future of your future self, so to speak. And God looking at your whole life and seeing how your whole life was simply a exercise in aligning with your highest self, with your God self, if you will, helping you align with the love that God is. And so would God, or your future self, if your future self can look at your past self and present self with gratitude and compassion and understanding, wouldn't God also look at even your future self, your present self and past self the same way? And so you see, guilt, the feeling and emotion of guilt is not needed anymore. That's the ego's thought system. That's an illusionary thought system. That's a thought system that you simply, an illusion that you carried from the past into the present. And you're only experiencing in the present because you still believe it as real. But if you see guilt as simply a device that helped you realize that you were separating yourself from your truest self, then wouldn't guilt be simply a tool you're using to become more self-aware? And if this tool is helping you become more self-aware, then wouldn't you be grateful for it? And so let us judge ourselves no longer for or carry this guilt along with us. At every single point in time, we are at our highest level of consciousness. And so at our highest level of consciousness, we always make the best decisions possible we can at that time. The most loving, compassionate, understanding decision possible with the tools that we have available to us at that time. So no matter where you are, you're always making the best decision possible. Even though the ego might look at it as bad or not kind or not what have you, and make you feel guilty about it, you made the best decision possible you could at that moment in time. And so there's no need to feel guilty about it. Simply remember this, that every moment of your life, you are at your highest level of consciousness. You're doing the best you can with the tools you have available to you now. And so that's the decision you made. And so there's no need to feel guilty about it. Guilt is simply a tool that we're using to align with our highest self. And so let us offer gratitude to this guilt, to this idea of guilt. And yes, if you feel better asking for forgiveness or what have you, then do so. Simply keep aligning with the state of peace. When you have peace, that's a trigger to help you realize that you are aligning with your highest self. When you have guilt, that's simply a trigger that's helping you realize that you're aligning with the ego's thought system. And you're believing the ego's thought system is more real than God's plan, which is our highest will plan. And so when we increase our trust in God's source, when we increase our trust in our highest self, that our highest self and God have co-created this journey for us specifically, individualized sacred journey for us, to help us reach a higher level of consciousness, a more loving, self-loving level of consciousness, a more oneness with God, even though we are right now one with God. we might not yet realize that. When we're buying into guilt, into anger, into resentment, into jealousy, into hatred, into anxiousness, into stress, any of those, where we have forgotten our true nature. But today we're just playing with the illusion of guilt and giving it somewhat of an explanation for you to help us release guilt from our lives. Remembering that our journey is sacred. Your journey is sacred. No matter how the ego has programmed you to look at it. No matter how your parents, your peers, your society, your friends have programmed you to look at the events in your life, you did the best you could with the knowledge you had at that point in time. So do not carry guilt anymore. Release it. Let it go. It's an illusion. It's simply a helpful tool now. That it's helping you realize that you're not connected to your highest self. And so use the tool. Use it. Oh, I'm feeling guilty. Somewhere I'm not aligned with my highest self. Somehow I did something that was not in alignment with my highest self. So let me look at it. Okay, let me forgive myself for that. Let me understand that I did the best I could in that moment in time. Let me ask for forgiveness if that's what I need to do, and then move on. And with gratitude towards that guilt, with gratitude towards everybody involved in that situation, because everybody involved in the situation is also simply helping you align with your highest self. So if you're carrying guilt today, think about that. And remember that God loves you and that you have co-created a perfect journey for yourself. And your journey will be perfect for all those around you. And their journeys will individually be perfect and sacred. So there's no longer a need to carry this guilt. Release it. Let it go. It is not yours to carry. It is an illusion of the ego, made to try to support the ego's thought system, so that the ego's thought system can survive. But little by little, we're starting to realize we have no more use for the ego's thought system. And so we let all of its tools go. And when we still need them for X or Y reason, because the ego might be around for a little while longer, that's okay. Let's use its tools to help us remember who in truth we are. So we use guilt to help us remember who in truth we are. We use guilt to help us remember that we're not quite aligned with our highest self. And then we thank it for that, for helping us realize that. And then we consciously choose to align with our highest self. And we forgive the guilt and we let it go. All right, good enough for now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love you very much. If you'd be so kind as to comment, share, or like this video, it helps with the listening process and it can help somebody dealing with guilt find this video. If you'd like to leave me a question, I would be delighted to try and offer a response. And if you can please subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would love to have you in this community. Again, thank you so much for your time. I love you very much, and God willing, we'll see each other tomorrow. Peace.